Parsha begins that the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, had a nightmare. And in this nightmare, he was standing over the river Nile, and he saw there were 7 cows, and they were nice and gesund and very, very healthy, and they were eating in the meadow. And then another 7 cows came, and they were in a terrible state. They were emaciated, they were thin, and yet these 7 cows came and they devoured the first 7 cows. And he awoke and he had another dream similar, except that in the second dream, instead of cows, it was ears of corn or wheat. He woke up in a terrible panic. He was sweating, and he realized that there was something very meaningful in this dream. And he called all of the stargazers and the interpreters of Egypt, and no one could give him a satisfactory interpretation. And this is when Joseph comes on the scene, and he's brought before the Pharaoh out of prison, and he interprets it. There are 7 good years coming, but these are going to be followed by 7 years of famine, and we have to prepare right now. But if we look at the dream, there is something that is very, very telling. The Torah tells us, V'hinei omed paro al hayaor. Paro omed al hayaor. In his dream, Pharaoh was standing on top of the Nile. Al hayaor. He was standing on top of the river Nile. What does that mean exactly? And our sages explain as follows. For the Egyptian people, the river Nile was seen as a god. It was the provider of bounty in their country. Indeed, without the river Nile, Egypt would be one vast desert. It's the river Nile that always made it the breadbasket of the Middle East. It provided for them, and they viewed it as an all-powerful God. But the person who was above even the river Nile was the Pharaoh. Pharaohs were seen as deities. And therefore, he, in his dream, because this is how he viewed himself and this is how his nation viewed him, he was standing al hayaor, on top of the river Nile. The river Nile was a god, but he was the god above the river Nile. He was the deity above the river Nile. Then we compare it to a verse in an earlier parsha in the book of Bereshit, in Parshat Lech Lecha, where Hashem is giving prophecy to Abraham. And at the end of the prophecy it says, Vaya'ala Elokim me'al Avraham, that the Lord ascended from off Avraham, me'al Avraham, as if Hashem was standing on top of Avraham, and now he ascended and he went, as it were, back to heaven. This is the contrast. So we have one verse where Pharaoh is standing above his God, and another verse where Hashem himself is standing above Avraham. And this, our sages tell us, is the difference in the viewpoint between the idolatrous nations, the pagan nations, and the Jewish people. In the pagan nations, they, the human beings, are above their gods. They control their gods. They work out how their gods must look. And they shape their gods according to them. And so it was that we found with the Greek and the Roman gods, that the Greek and Roman gods were basically gods. They were human beings, but they had godly powers. But all of the negative things of human beings, those gods had. They cheated, they committed adultery and theft and murder and all of these types of things, because really they had created God in their image. Where when we look at Avraham, it's completely the opposite way round. Hashem, God, is above Avraham. He stands there, as Rashi puts it, as a merkava, as a chariot for Hashem to go into. And there it is Hashem who creates man in his image, not the other way around. And this is one of the terrible aspects of human history. Whenever human beings have created God in their image, they have given God all of the negative parts of human nature. And then God becomes a terrible God and can commit all types of tragedies. But when man is made in the image of God, and God is all forgiving and loving and caring and full of kindness, then you can create a world that is also loving and forgiving and full of kindness. This is the difference in how the Jewish people should view their God and how the pagans viewed their deities. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.